Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Butcher Shop Talk. Of course, my name is Nicole Brunk. I'm here with Ryan Calhoun from Newport Meats. He is our tried and true partner on this podcast to talk about all things meat and everything going on regarding butcher shops and meat and consumption and pricing and all that good stuff. So we got a good episode for you guys tonight. We're going to be talking about some things. Ryan's going to give us a little bit of an update on the beef market. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are going to be happening with the warmer weather, how that it's affecting our pricing. And then we'll get into a little bit of like some of the domestic changes that have been happening, along with maybe some international brands of beef that we're going to be talking about as well. So I'm going to give it over to you, my dear.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. There's a lot to talk about. A lot has been going on in the last 3-4 weeks since we've done this, right?
Yes.
How's business been? You guys doing all right?
You know, business has been good.
Okay.
We've been experiencing a little bit of an uptick with the warmer weather. I would say in the butcher shop, we've been
A lot of people out there grilling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had to throw kebabs out in the meat case pretty early this year and kind of really start to pivot our focus to that because I think like most people feel like they're not really getting a spring. Mm-hmm. And so it's just
getting hot pretty early.
Yeah. And then and it's going to be raining tomorrow. So, I mean, might be talking a little bit too soon, but, you know, so far.
Yeah. Well, speaking of summer, you know, that's I think it's important. You know, it's a good opportunity for us to kind of get into those summer trends and kind of what we're working with. And as you and I were talking before this, you know, I think it's a great topic to hit in March because it kind of prepares people for people watching just kind of what to expect in the summer. You know, we're seeing, speaking of the market, like we're seeing some really early trends of pricing. You know, pricing last year was crazy high. It happened way earlier than expected. We saw some gnarly increases in August and September, which didn't really fall off or come down until we got into this year. And so in January, February, things fell off. And now really quickly, they're spiking back up.
Yeah.
Especially those summer cuts. So, we've, as far as kill rates, man, they're just not where they used to be. You know, in our prime, which I hope we're getting back to here. In our prime, you know, harvest days, you know, we were up close to 600,000 head of cattle were harvested per week.
That's crazy numbers.
Yeah. Those were good numbers. You know, we were consuming a lot of beef. We had a good herd nationally. People were happy. There was supply to go around. Nothing was too expensive.
Yeah. There was no shortage, which we kind of see that a little bit here and there now.
Oh, for sure. Their beef was plentiful. And like we've talked about in previous episodes, you know, COVID sucked up a ton of beef.
Yep.
People were home. They wanted steaks. They wanted things to eat. People were, you know, they weren't only stockpiling toilet paper, man. They were freezing beef and they were putting a lot of stuff in the freezer. So we've never really been able to grow. When I say the herd nationally, we've never been able to really get those numbers back up to pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. They've always been fluttering, you know, low to mid 500s. I think last week's harvest numbers was 503,000. That was a really low one. I saw one number in the last year that was sub 500, and that was really kind of scary. Thankfully, this week, I think we've seen, and when I say this week, I'm talking about last full week's numbers, was 530-ish head were harvested in the week. But those numbers are still significantly lower than what we're accustomed to seeing. Mm-hmm. So the good thing is beef is heavier. You know, I had a conversation with one of my customers, and you know, he is very in tune and has a really good pulse on the market and what's going on. And he was saying, yeah, you know, there's not that many head slaughtered, or harvested, sorry. But cattle are heavier, and he's totally right. They are much, much, much heavier. Cattle, I think the numbers we saw are walking around. Harvest weight is I think 996. So a year ago, that's 47 pounds heavier than where we were a year ago.
Wow.
And yeah, so
what contributes to that?
Feed.
Is it what they're feeding, or how much do you think?
It's both. So it's not so much how much they're feeding, it's the longevity, like how long they're being fed.
Right.
So most cattle are most cattle are going to be started on formula, right? As a calf. From there, they'll go on to a farm. They'll go to a ranch, right? You go as a cow is birthed. It goes to a calf cattle operation as a baby. It's fed formula, kind of weaned onto pasture, and then it goes onto a farm, goes on to Nicole's ranch, right? And from there, that's where you see the serene pictures.
Yeah.
It's eating grass. It's having a great life. And then from there is kind of where more of the commercial side comes into it. That's, after that, after a cattle kind of gets to a certain age or a certain weight, it'll then go into a feedlot where that's where you see a lot of the growth.
Yeah.
So, because we don't have this many, we don't have the head of cattle, farmers are getting bigger cattle. Right. So they're still getting, some of the numbers. They're still hurting, but they're
finding other ways
managing.
to kind of,
they're managing
to get to that number they need.
So yeah, it's cattle. We're getting smarter and smarter as a human race, right? As science is getting better. And so we figured out, we're not feeding them a bunch of this man-made, what people think it is. There's no animal proteins in a lot of it. There is some stuff like man-made stuff in there, obviously, but for the most part, there is corn, but there is distiller's grain in a lot of it, which is a byproduct of ethanol. There's a lot of alfalfa hay that goes into it, soft white wheat, soy goes into it. So every farm's got a kind of a proprietary feed.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just kind of feed them a little bit longer, or you tweak the rations. But a lot of people don't know this, for the last, I think while they're on the feedlot, they're going to eat about 8 pounds of food a day, and they're going to put on a pound or two a day.
Wow.
And so, yeah, if you can have that cow on the feedlot for an extra week, you're putting on an extra 10 pounds in a week.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of makes up for not having the number.
Not having the numbers.
Yeah.
Right. So we are kind of getting back there. People are holding cattle back, which is where we come into shortages. Mm-hmm. But it's the numbers are light. And when you get into those 500 numbers, those low 500 numbers, that's where you start to see shortages, because there's certain cuts of meat, where you get 2 ribeyes off of a cow, right? And at your butcher shop,
2 ribeye loins.
2 ribeye muscles, right? And so it's 4 muscles, 4 loins to a box. Mm-hmm. So it only takes 2 cows to fill that box up.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about other muscles, flat meat, which you go through a lot of, or flank steak,
hangers,
or hanger steak, right?
Skirt.
You get 2 hangers a cow.
Yeah.
But you get 2 hangers that are 5 pounds each, right? So you're getting, you get what I'm saying. You're a 35-pound case. That takes 10 cows to fill that case up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people don't really understand the quantifying.
A terrace major takes 15 cows to fill that case up.
Yeah.
So when you have a shortage of animals and it takes so many cattle to fill these, what we call thin meats, you have end cuts, you have middle meats, you have thin meats, and your thin meats are pretty much from the neck to the lower waist, and that's like across, like in the down bottom part of the cow. Sorry, those are called your thin meats. Your flank steak, your skirt steak, your tri-tip, your brisket, not your brisket, but
Top sirloin.
No, it's just think of the belly of the cow.
Yeah.
Right. So, but your thin meats, typically it takes quite a bit of cows to fill those cases up. And so when you have a shortage, those are always the first ones going up. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at right now. That's what we're experiencing. Thankfully, I got a market report from last week you and I glanced at. Yep. It seems pretty steady. Nothing's spiking too high right now. But as we're going into summer, seasonally, we're always going to see things spike.
Right.
And so, for instance, New York strips historically, and when I mean historically, I've been in this business for almost 20 years. Almost every winter will after summer will crash.
Yeah.
And you'll see the bottom of the market in the winter. It's an opportunity to buy. when it's low, and you'll always see those spike in the summer. I think this last year, because ribs were so high, what our national team assumed was strips were being swallowed up. Screw buying ribeyes, we're going to buy strips, right? And see how the public reacts to it. And so strips never came off. The price never really came down too much. After January, they crashed, and we just saw a 3-year low. So we saw New York set typically, sit at around $13-14 for a choice ribeye. We were selling them for 11, 10. They got pretty low. Low enough where I secured, I think 6,000 pounds for a customer of mine.
Yeah. And we even supported that during Valentine's Day for our menu and had those on there to
we try to
give
take
value.
advantage of some things, to help our clients out and relief, in an economy that's kind of tough right now. But so the strip got super low, and sure enough, it's bouncing back fast.
Damn. So pricing
is
up.
going up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's typically what we see in the summer.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, I think on that particular muscle, it's just taken a little bit of a quick increase.
Yeah.
But items that are gonna go up typically for summer is gonna be your New York strip.
Yeah.
It's gonna be your tri-tip. It's gonna be your flat meat.
Skirt.
Your skirt steak. Yeah. A lot of chuck, because you got to think it's hamburger season, right? And all those chucks are getting ground up. So, those are your summer cuts that are always going to kind of increase. I always suggest, something that Newport does, that I'm pretty in tune with, is trying to make upfront buys and try to capture pricing when it's low, and maybe being able to freeze and slack out when ready for customers.
Yeah. You're always looking for those opportunities to try and help out. And if for those who have tuned in before and kind of listened to, us talk through some of the episodes, Ryan does have accounts that he helps and manages, and that we go in and talk about some of the benefits that you have to kind of having a dedicated salesperson who is specializing in the meat market and meat industry. And so he really tries to work to try and make sure that, depending on whatever time of year it is or whatever's happening, that he's securing the best orders and pricing for you. Because what happens is that then that trickles down to the customer who's either coming in to dine at your restaurant or coming in to buy meat at your meat shop. And so as we talk about this, we talk about some of the things that happen with different times of year when historically you have items, like you said, that are going to go up in pricing. But I think what Ryan has done a really good job of talking to us about is that, because of some of the circumstances that we've had within the meat market and just in general with processing and how many heads, is that in times when we have historically seen items go lower, they have not. They've stayed high. So it's affected you guys at home. I know all of the parents, mothers, even fathers out there shopping, trying to buy food and good meat for your family at home. You're saying, gosh, man, this is rough out here. And everybody says it. And so you have people like myself and Ryan who really try and do everything that we can within the businesses that we touch to try and make sure that we pass that savings and economic benefits down to you.
And not only that, but some insight to you folks.
Yes.
For the people watching, we can't always, and I appreciate the kind words, we can't always foresee the future, right? Last year, God, I remember August, I was waiting, right? I'm like, I'm gonna secure some prime ribs for you guys, and we're gonna get a really good price. And we saw the uptick. We were waiting for some relief. By the time any kind of relief came, it was Thanksgiving already. And it never came. And so we do the best we can. Thankfully, we have a great team behind us. We have a regional merchandising team that does a good job kind of seeing where the market is and having a good pulse on that. But other than that, we have a national team headquartered out of Houston who buys for 27 meat distribution centers. So part of SSMG is Cisco Specialty Meat Group that Newport is included in. Cisco owns 27 meat companies nationwide. I just want to shout out SoCal is the first one they acquired, and the biggest one that's the biggest one still to this day.
Oh yeah.
So we have a national team that kind of has a 40,000 foot view and can kind of see a little bit higher of where things are going and how things are moving. And so they've been pretty integral in helping us secure some things like on Valentine's Day, where we're able to offer a discount to you guys and you're able to offer some relief to customers. But when that doesn't happen, I at the very least want to just inform you guys of kind of what's going on and, in anticipation.
Yeah.
So at least you guys can make a wise choice and maybe look for other options or just understand why it's going higher. And maybe, it just gives a little bit of insight as to why,
Absolutely. Yeah,
So-
that's a great. And, I had a question that I thought of when you were talking about the number of heads that we've processed, how
Yes.
they've gone down. It was in the 600s. Now it's gone down to the low 500s per week, folks, per week. That is insane to think about. With that, where do you think a majority of that processing comes from? Is that more Midwestern, product, or is there one area where a majority of that processing is happening per week?
No, so that is nationwide, and I'm actually glad you asked this. Part of the low count from last week, we had JBS is one of the biggest beef producers in the world. They have a major plant in Greeley, Colorado. That plant went on strike about 2 weeks ago. That plant is responsible for about 5,000 head per day.
Jeez.
That's 30,000 head weekly that we are not seeing right now. So that 503 number 2 weeks ago probably could have been around 530, 540. Right. And then this week at 530, we might have cracked 550, 560, which would have been fantastic.
Right.
But the workers are on strike. Nothing is wrong with that plant. Obviously, it's your typical kind of wage. They are union, so I think it's kind of a wage strike. But from a national perspective, once again, our national team is kind of hesitant to see how this trickles to other producers. Right? There are so many beef producers and harvesting facilities. Who's to say more don't go on strike, right?
Right.
What does that look like? So I think this is the first I've ever seen this happen. I don't believe this is probably the first it has ever happened, but
Right.
just that I've experienced.
When you have a plant that goes on strike and then you have the other plants around you, that causes then the pricing to go up because the demand goes up because there's less being put out, correct?
Less beef.
Right.
Yeah. So
So
ideally,
it affects the people at home.
Ideally, they try to shift. Look, the cows got to go somewhere, right? The cows just don't disappear out of thin air.
Yeah.
But what they would try to do, and what they did try to do, was just divert cattle somewhere else. But a couple things go into that. First of all, those facilities are responsible for their own for harvesting their own number of cattle.
Right.
You can't just throw 5,000 head at one processing facility and say, "Hey, here's some extra cows, go for it."
Yeah.
They can't handle that kind of weight of processing. Two, you don't want to, something that I think we've grown in a society, we've done really, really well is really taking care of animal welfare. And from where cattle are raised and fed to where they are processed and harvested is typically pretty short. And they do that because they don't want to agitate. They don't want cortisol levels going up in the animal. They don't want the animal getting frustrated or agitated. And so when you're in, we've all probably seen like the big steel big rigs where, cows or horses are in the back. They don't want to travel that long. And so something we've grown really well at is keeping that distance pretty close.
Yeah.
Where the animal's raised as to where it is harvested. So you don't really want to take the animals and go 300, 400, 500 miles, right? It's a lot of gas. It's going to make the cows, tense up and get those cortisol levels high, which in turn will cause a lot of rough meat, or a lot of tough meat. And so it's just bad in general.
Yeah.
And so, some of the cows, some of that cattle, some of those numbers probably did go somewhere else. JBS has plants all over the place.
Sure.
But for the most part, that was a big reason for the decrease in numbers.
So that's interesting because as you're talking about that, it's making me think. When I think of the Never Ever programs, Aspen Ridge was one of the plants that kind of was, categorized as that Never Ever, meaning no antibiotics added ever. Not that.
Yeah.
Okay, so like the calf got sick, they were given antibiotics, but they're sent somewhere else for processing because they don't meet that standard now. Because of course you want all of your cattle and everything to be healthy, and you obviously don't want them dying because they're sick or anything else like that.
Yeah.
So if they then ship them somewhere else, well, I mean, does that title go away?
I don't know. So Greeley, Colorado is pretty well known for the Aspen Ridge program.
Yeah.
The Aspen Ridge program I thought was fantastic. I know you've played around with it. We've sold it to you for a little bit. It is a Never Ever program. It is 100% Angus by genetic. And I'd love to talk to that a little bit. There are Angus influenced programs and Angus genetic programs.
What's the difference?
Angus influence is you're going to have a lot of influence, 51% or greater Angus influence.
So then they can claim it Angus.
Yes.
Genetic means?
Genetic, 100%. So it's, sorry, I'm kind of lost for words right now. Aspen Ridge was 100% Angus genetic program.
Got it.
All black Angus or red Angus. No other breed of cattle went into that program.
I see.
So between the genetics,
I want it back.
between the genetics of the program, between the Never Ever, how they fed the cattle, how they processed the cattle, they did a really, really good job. And yeah, Greeley, Colorado, that's what people knew, because Aspen Ridge came out of that program. I don't know if the Aspen Ridge cattle went somewhere else and got packed somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's any part of the program that maybe that Greeley, Colorado plant did differently than other plants where they couldn't do it, where they couldn't take the cattle somewhere else. But I'm not sure. I just know that plant specifically has been not operable for the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think everyone's kind of watching to see what's going to happen. There is no end in sight from my understanding. Yeah. And so this is where we are.
Does that, how does that affect, we talk a lot about the domestic, cattle and what we have going on in processing. How does that affect international? Does it affect international? And
no, that plant shutting down specifically doesn't affect internationally the market or in that sense. Now it does affect us because we are not getting nearly the supply of international beef that we used to, for various reasons. The administration has played around with some tariffs, which has made people hesitant or just made it expensive to come over. And Mexico I think the last feels like a year. I don't know if it's been a year or not, but has been dealing with a screwworm.
Yeah.
And so there's not a whole lot of beef coming in from Mexico, where not that you bought Mexican beef, right? No. But other people do.
Carnicerias.
Carnicerias, grocery stores, all sorts of people. A lot of restaurants that you'd be actually surprised that I'm not going to name.
But I mean, I don't know.
But when they can't get Mexican beef, they got to get something.
Right.
So now they're upgrading and they're buying the beef you're buying, and now it's making your supply shorter.
Very expensive.
Right. So
short on supply and very expensive. But it's just interesting. I think that, I actually think that we should probably do an episode on beef from Mexico, because I do not think that a lot of people, especially in California, know what the difference is between meat that they have that is from Mexico, when they're buying it or eating it, and just what, some of the differences are. And I think that could be a whole episode and just on that part of it, because when we have meat displayed in our meat case, we always reference USDA inspected.
Yes.
And there's certain things that you can little things that you can see when you go to buy meat that will let you know, okay, yeah, this came from, this is domestic, this came from North America, this didn't come from, wherever. But there's just so much I feel like that we lose by having meat coming from Mexico so I actually think it's kind of like, okay, so it's inspected when it comes in, but is it USDA inspected?
No.
And so it's like,
FDA.
okay, FDA. So FDA inspected to come across the border.
Yes.
But not USDA.
Or across the border or on a boat. Any animal, anything international, right?
Okay.
Anything overseas needs to go through customs just like anything else does.
Right.
It is inspected.
So how do they get grading out of that though?
There's no grading.
So the
grading is a USDA, that's the United States Department of Agriculture,
right,
is a USDA grade. If it is international, it is not inspected by the USDA for grading. Grading cannot happen after it's in a box. Grading needs to happen at the processing facility. So the fact that it's processed outside of the United States, you're not having a USDA inspector there, it is not being graded.
So I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems like a lot of the places that maybe do not have it USDA inspected will reference it as prime, like ranchera, like
prime ranchera or prime, prime
and
beef.
It's like they're doing that based off of the look of marbling, but not necessarily off of grading that they've gotten.
Yes, so it's a little tricky, and I feel like this is where the meat industry gets a bad name.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of tricks.
Yeah.
And more so,
which is why we bring him to you.
So there's truth and law menus, right? And for us as a distributor, Newport Meat as a distributor, and for those of you that own restaurants and businesses and butcher shops, please listen to this. If you ever get a box from Newport Meat Company and it is graded, you will see 4 letters. USDA, and then the grade right next to it. Choice, prime, select, whatever it may be. We don't do a lot of select.
Doesn't come to me.
If it does not have those 4 letters, it can still say choice, select, or prime. But what they're referencing is this is Newport Meat's prime, or this is Nicole's prime, or this is Ryan's prime. It's not referencing a USDA grade. It's just referencing a name that they're coming up with.
Company's prime.
Right. The company's prime. Right.
Wow.
It is not USDA inspected. And so on your box of beef, and I've seen this firsthand with other meat distributors, on your box of beef, it could say prime boneless ribeyes. But if it does not say USDA, you should know it's not really prime, or you could assume it's not really prime. And the worst part about this is the distributor is doing nothing wrong.
FDA. Standards are low.
No one, USDA.
USDA, excuse me, sorry.
But you need to look for those 4 letters, USDA. If it does not have those 4 letters, the grade is almost irrelevant. And so here's the tricky part. You being my client, right? If I'm doing this and I'm playing these tricks with you, if you think it's prime, you can then advertise prime, right? And you're thinking you're doing nothing wrong. If you get caught, you are liable. I am not, even though I tricked you. I didn't do anything wrong because I never told you it was USDA graded. You assumed it was, you advertised it was, and now there's truth and law menus and false advertising lawsuits that can be had.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really dirty kind of scheme. I try to pinpoint it whenever I can see it to my clients. I'm not calling any names out. I don't want to say anything, but it is out there. It's prevalent. I see it more times than I'd like to admit it. And yeah, that's, you gotta trust your suppliers out there, people.
Yeah. You really do have to have people who, are honest. I think I feel like every company wants to be like honest and have integrity in what they do. But I think it also speaks to some of the standards. And I think for one moment, Ryan, you could probably talk to us a little bit about some of the FDA standards for what it needs to be considered all natural.
Yeah.
And it's
all natural is a little buzzword there, and it's more for domestic beef. It's always USDA. Very rarely is it FDA. But all natural, there's really 2 qualifications. No artificial ingredients, and we've gone through this before. And
minimally processed. So
minimally processed.
Only gone through 1 or 2 like
Yeah.
different hands.
So
for,
no. It can't be cut for stew. It can't be ground up. It can't be portioned. Minimally processed. No artificial ingredients. That is our qualifications for all natural, which to me is, pardon my words, but a crock of shit.
bullshit. Total bullshit. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you go in
That's
the
where our
grocery store
standards have
somewhere.
gone.
Yeah, and you see natural, all natural, and you're thinking that you got this cow or whatever product is, out on a
Yeah.
field, and they're being given natural feed and natural this, and it's just
And you and your brain as a consumer buying this product have come up with this picture in your head
Yep.
of a cow
Yep.
on a grassy hill, right?
Yep, sun rays going behind them.
That is not the case at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of love doing this. I love teaching people. I love learning about it. I do know a lot, but I love learning all the time. And I'm still learning this industry. I had an instructor once in culinary school. He said the only constant thing in food is change. This thing is changing all the time. So the more you can kind of keep up with it, the more knowledge I can consume, the more information I'm happy to give you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. I think that there's part of this industry that's changing so much, like as you said, and so it's important for us in giving information out to give you guys a sneak peek behind the curtains as far as what's happening, and the most up to date being that Ryan is in the company that he is with. He's giving, he's basically passing on data to you that he's privy to, and it helps us understand kind of maybe some of the things that we're experiencing at home. Everybody knows that it is expensive to buy meat, to buy food, and to feed your families, and so we want to try and help give you guys some ideas, and maybe some of the things that are going to be cheaper going into the summer that you can maybe switch to.
Yeah, and kind of getting back to the market, something that can maybe help viewers or listeners. When we look at the big scheme, let's say our number is 530 last week, right? 530 head of cattle. About 90% of that, I think 89.7 ish, of those animals were graded, which is a great number for us. That's an awesome number. Part of that is because bigger cows, longer feed, they're going to marble, right?
Yeah.
So about 90% of those cattle were graded. And out of those grades, we are seeing a significantly higher grade of prime than we have been in the past. Sorry. When I first got into this industry back in 2010, a good prime number was like 7-8%, right? We're 13 right now. We're 12, 13% of that, of let's call it 530 last week. 12 or 13% of that is prime. On the bottom end of that, you're going to have about 15 or so percent be select.
Yeah.
So if you have 15 up top, 15 below, you have 70% being sucked up in choice.
Right.
And so the great thing is we're getting so much more prime than we used to. And because prime is a little more expensive than choice, for viewers and listeners out there, you're going to start to see the gap narrow between choice and prime. So your pricing, even for you as my client, you're going to see the upper choice programs and the prime and the USDA prime grade programs. That gap where normally you would see $2, $3, $4 in some muscles, you're actually going to see like $1.50, because there is a little more supply of prime out there. Not too many people, not as many people buying it, but bigger cows, better grades. There's some supply out there.
Yeah.
So look out for that, guys. When you're out there buying meat, and you're typically, maybe if you're a choice buyer, take a look at prime. You might only be buying it for another $1 or $2 a pound.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that I think it was, I don't know, it wasn't this last holiday, but the one before it. I mean, we were really having a hard time getting prime, to be honest. It was very difficult, and so it's nice to see that it's kind of made its way back. I mean, even if you go, obviously if you come into Brunk's Butchery, you're going to see that we have our prime grade and we have our upper 1/3, upper choice program. So that way we have two different price points of a value with a quality product, but you can really see the marbling in that prime. I feel like that if you go anywhere else and you look at a product that they might be presenting as prime, and I did that. Maybe it was like last weekend. I went to some other places and I was looking at what they had categorized in their meat cases as prime, and it looked like shit. I'm sorry. It really did. Whereas I feel like that when you come and you look at
Which
ours.
brings me to our next topic.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like when you look at ours, you're like, yeah, that is a marbled prime piece of bone and ribeye right there. Like, I know that that's like the top tier of prime. And so I just think it's interesting because there's so many different categories of what prime consists of based off of like where you've gotten your meat or where it's coming from, whether it's domestic or from Mexico, this and that. And so the more that you know and the better you understand, the better buying decisions you can make when you're going to purchase meat for your family.
For sure. Or at a restaurant or at a steakhouse.
Yes, exactly.
Not all prime is created equally. Yeah.
Sorry, that was cheeky.
USDA prime grade, it can be kind of finicky, and I'm sure you heard this. Like when we were at the, our old butcher shop, people always referenced, I can go to Costco and get this cheaper, or I can go here and get this cheaper, and you can, you totally can. But the products that you're buying are significantly better, in my opinion, than what other establishments are getting. So there's a lot that has to do with that, right? First of all, when you're talking about big grocery stores, places like a Ralph's or a Vaughn's or a Stater Brothers or a Costco or a Walmart, all of these people buy meat, buy beef. They are so large that they're just buying a grade, right? Let's take Costco, for instance, just because I think a lot of people see value in Costco, and a lot of people, they sell whole ribeyes, they sell A5, they do all kinds of stuff. But when you're talking about how many Costcos throughout the entire nation, let alone Southern California, they cannot really hone in on the breed of cattle or the age of beef or some of the small nuances that you can do because you're a little more hands-on and a little more attentive. And you're smaller, you're not buying as much. So when they're buying prime, if you're buying dairy cattle, it can be graded. Holsteins can be graded. Other breeds of cattle can be graded. It's not going to eat the same. It really, really won't. But it might look the same.
Yeah.
And sometimes it won't, like you were alluding to, sometimes where we get one shot at grading when the cow is going through a harvest facility and it's hanging upside down, we cut in between, I believe the 6th, 7th, and 8th rib. And we take with a camera, with a machine, you'll see the USDA grader, put it right up to the rib, snap a picture of it, and the computer will generate a grade. So that whole cow is going to be graded based off of that one picture on that one rib. And so sometimes that rib looks great, and maybe the rest of the muscles don't. Those are the inconsistencies you're going to get. Those are the inconsistencies with genetic, the inconsistencies in feeding, the inconsistency in, in breed of cattle, which I guess have to do genetics. But that's just what you're going to get with a big grocery store. If it's labeled choice or prime, that's all they're looking for.
Yeah.
Whereas you are more in touch with what you're buying, who you're buying it from. When you buy from Double R Ranch, you understand like what that entails. You know exactly what they're eating or what they're being fed. You know the whole process. It's virtually integrated. They own the genetics, they own the farm, they own the processing facility, they own it all, right? It's not really a this big beef conglomerate that's buying cattle on market, putting it on a feedlot, for 100 days, and then calling it, whatever program they're calling it.
Right.
It is prime grade beef at the end of the day. But your prime ribeye is going to eat a hell of a lot better than someone else's prime ribeye. Yeah. And that's not to knock on Costco. I'm not saying Costco buys all bad beef at all. But the inconsistency of it, how can they be consistent?
Yeah. It's impossible because they're buying in such quantity that it's impossible to really know exactly what you're getting in, the age. And, and obviously certified Black Angus is our best cattle in North America, right? And I think that those are the ones going to eat the best. So you have your certified Angus beef plus your Black Angus.
Yeah, we've done a good job at. There are different breeds of cattle. Some cattle are bred for dairy. Some cattle are bred for working, right? Towing.
Yeah.
Some cattle are bred for consumption, eating steaks. Cows will do better. Certain cows and certain breeds do better in different environments. So way back in the day, a farm that I'm not going to name brought over some Japanese Wagyu cattle, full-blooded, and they didn't do that well. We didn't see the marbling. They didn't see the marbling that they wanted to see, and they kind of realized like this isn't the same environment that Japan is. Right? Japan's an island. It's a lot more moisture. You get a lot more rainfall. Taller grass. It's just night and day difference to the atmosphere and the environment from Japan to where this cattle was being raised in the United States.
Right.
And so that cow, that breed of cattle does a lot better in Japan, and obviously they raise cattle differently too. So it's not all just, the environment, but a lot of it has to do with it. So we've done a really good job, and the Angus breed of cattle thrive in our environment. It's a little bit of a hardier cattle. It's a little shorter, a little stockier, puts on fat where we want to see fat. I think as a nation, right? Obviously all nations consume different cuts of meat. They even break beef a little bit differently, but the Angus breed of cattle has done very, very well for what we want it to do. And for where we're raising it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, speaking of which, and that's kind of where I got to I touched a little bit on with some of these bigger grocery stores is I said, you don't really want to eat dairy cattle. Like that is a cow not bred for consumption. As much as I would probably get some arguments from people off of this.
Oh yeah, they 100%. Oh, I had this. We got
So, you see the black and white dairy cows, right? And those are Holstein animals. So the Holstein breed of cows are getting more and more prevalent. There are more brands out there supporting it. There are more brands out there breeding and using the Holstein breed. Personally, I haven't seen a whole lot of success with it, or I haven't experienced a whole lot of success with it. And obviously, like Newport, we really have kind of leaned into Angus bred cattle. We really think that it eats a little better, and we're really happy with our partners and the farms that we're using. But there are people that love that Holstein brand. It's got a different flavor profile. The muscle composition on the cow is much different. I shouldn't say much, but is different.
It's different.
If you've ever seen a New York strip on a Holstein cow, it's like 3 feet long.
Damn.
It's super long. You get a little stock. You get a shorter ribeye. The cow's just built different, right?
Yeah.
A different breed of cow. But I don't know that I would say like that cow was bred for consumption. It's always been a dairy cow.
Yeah.
And even if you see Holstein programs, there's always like a footnote. There's no dairy influence. Like, why would you have to put that? You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about that with an Angus breed program.
Right.
So you don't really want to eat dairy cattle. No. Now, there are, I'm assuming, grocery stores out there because you can grade it out. I mean, any cow will grade.
Oh yeah, you give it enough feed, you're going to give it the pounds. It's going to get the marbling.
As long as it marbles. But it doesn't mean it's going to eat well. Again, it's got different muscle composition. There's all sorts of things that go into it. But if you have let's say you get a dairy cow that grades prime, and you're eating that next to your Angus cow, I bet 9 out of 10 people are going to choose that Angus ribeye over that Holstein dairy animal prime.
I want to ask you a question so bad. Do you think Black Angus serves Black Angus?
They do.
Do they?
Black Angus is a customer of ours. Yes. Yes. How could they not?
Well, no, because it was just like, because Black Angus, certified Black Angus is your highest quality, right? So it's like, So are they not selling any certified Angus beef, meaning choice, or like, is it all?
It's an Angus
Heist.
program.
So Angus, okay.
Yeah, it's an Angus program.
Is it a black Angus program though?
No, I mean, look, when you talk about Angus programs,
Yeah.
a qualification for most programs is it's black hided,
Got it.
but doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% black Angus.
Could be influenced.
Right.
Is it 51% or more?
Right. And that's where you get into that touchiness of like, is it an Angus influence program? Is it an Angus genetic program? And so those are important questions to ask, right? For someone like yourself.
Yeah.
For the folks listening, I'm sorry if you ask your butcher at Starbucks.
Yeah.
At Stater
Staters,
Brothers.
Yeah.
If it's a black Angus, he's not going to know.
Not even close.
Yeah.
No.
And just because it says black Angus on it, that's just an Angus influenced program. I would assume.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I'm not obviously buying meat for anybody out there. But you can kind of assume, that's what it is.
Well, let's talk really quickly too. We can maybe touch on this. Is that one of the ranches that is most known, I would say, around in this area is going to be Harris Ranch.
It is.
And so, what would you think? Like, where does Harris Ranch fit into the category? We do know that Costco will buy some Harris Ranch. We do know that there are some ranches that will do some of the, like the mRNA, like the vaccine that goes into it. And I think that, don't quote me, but they could have been using that, might have or might not have. But
I don't know. That's one that I haven't really kept a good pulse on.
Okay.
So I don't really want to touch too much on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. As far as animal vaccines are going, I have no idea who's using it, who's not using it, if it's required, if it's not required. I don't have too much info on that one.
I could look really quick while you're kind of talking on Harris Ranch and what you know.
So Harris Ranch, and they do a good job. At the end of the day, the thing I keep asking myself, and I really don't want to come on here like to start knocking people, but the first thing I got to ask myself is, where can you get healthy grass? Right. Where can you get a lot of rainfall and healthy grass? Because that's ultimately what cattle are going to eat.
Right.
And when year after year after year for, I don't know, the last decade or two, California's been in a drought. DROUGHT. We've been in a drought forever. So how are we getting good, nourishable grass for these cows to eat? This massive feedlot on the side of the 5 freeway, it to me is just kind of very commercial looking, right? And it doesn't fit what I want to sell. I'm not saying it's a bad farm or bad product whatsoever. It is also has a lot of Holstein influence. Again, that is those dairy cattle. So, a lot of people buy it. A lot of people have success with it. Now I will say people do like the locality of it, right? In California, everyone wants to go local, right? You want local produce, you want local this, you want local that. And so if you're trying to get local, Harris is really kind of the only one you can go to. So I get why people want to use the product.
Harris Ranch isn't one that like we would carry at our butchery. I know Stater Brothers and I think maybe even the Costco's, like we said, carry them. Just as a footnote here, I want to state that Harris Ranch Beef Company has explicitly stated that their cattle are not vaccinated with the mRNA vaccines.
Okay.
And no such vaccines are currently approved or used for beef cattle in the United States. False, unsubstantiated claims on social media suggested otherwise are inaccurate. So that is basically...
There we go.
Just want to make sure that we're giving you guys factual information. Yeah, because it was...
From the cow's mouth.
From the cow's mouth. There you go. But it's... I think that when you talk about like their feed or proprietary and you talk about like, it performing well or eating good, I think because maybe a lot of what they have is the Holstein influence, which is the dairy cattle, isn't something, it's not like a certified Angus beef kind of program or CAB or certified black Angus. So it's not something that we would personally carry because we want to carry the top tier of it. But I think sometimes when we talk to people about our meat, the first thing that they'll ask if they know of Harris Ranch is, do you carry Harris Ranch?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like hard to say, well, no, I mean, they're good, right, at what they do. But
so my immediate answer to a lot of that, because as I'm prospecting new clients, and I have discussions like this with people, they always say, we want local beef and Harris Ranch, yada yada yada. I always say, like, look, California cows, we've all seen the commercial. We make a lot of good cheese, make really good dairy cattle, not for consumption.
Right.
Again, we need healthy, it starts with healthy grass. You got to get good rainfall. You got to get a lot of grass. You got to get cows on pasture, and that's where it starts. California doesn't produce great beef for consumption.
And because we don't get a lot of rain.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You source a lot of stuff from Snake River Farms and Double R Ranch. Where's that? Pacific Northwest. When you talk about Oregon and Washington and Idaho, there is a ton of rainfall up there.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
A ton of rainfall. And so it produces a lot of grass, and it produces a lot of nourished feed for cattle. And that's where you want to start, right? It's just when you dissect it a little bit and kind of think into it, it's really clear. But again, I don't want to knock Harris. It fits a need for a lot of people, and so if you're looking for local, and you're just kind of more in the lane of just trying to look for a grade of meat, Harris fits a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. There's we have a lot of exciting things, I think, as we continue to plan out and look at some of the things that we're talking about. What are some of the topics that you think that we'll be discussing as we kind of go into our next episodes? I know we've talked about having a guest on our podcast.
Yeah, I would love to.
We have somebody who has committed to actually joining us for an episode, because I think it almost might be a good segue into our next filming that we do, because we've talked about some of the ranches and some of the partners that Newport Meat has for the CAB program that you guys have, and that we also bring into our restaurant and our butchery. So
yeah,
what are your thoughts on that, and kind of where do you see the beef market going as we do get tried and true into summer this year?
Well, topics, I don't want to give away too many topics. I always got some good stuff in my head.
Yeah.
But I like to think things through, and before I kind of blurt
and maybe
out
to get him
some
off
good
the
stuff.
hook a little bit here, we actually talked last episode about our menu. We have just the finishing touches on our R&D, and so some of the things that we talked about with our menu on the pricing that we're bringing out is going to be, we're looking to try and have it, I want to say by April 15th.
Mid-April, I thought, right?
We'll have the new menu in our restaurant, and as you guys can tell, we do have a live audience behind us. If it's your first time joining in and watching this episode, we do film live here in the restaurant, so that way people can kind of be part of the program. And then as we continue to develop and really grow the podcast, that we can even maybe have some questions that come from the audience and different things like that. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in with us and kind of going through the process with us as far as kind of getting our podcast legs underneath us and all that good stuff.
For sure.
Did you want to add anything on the menu, or just kind of?
No, I think the menu's looking great. I know we did some R&D. I'm excited. I think we got another little round coming up here pretty quickly. I'm excited for the new menu. I would love for I can't wait for the new thing to roll out, and for the guests to kind of take a look at it and see what their thoughts are on it. It's going to be formatted. I think it's formatted really nicely. There's some new cool stuff that we're putting in that I think are staples to a steakhouse. I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited.
We're excited with new drink menus. We're looking at pricing, and
I was just gonna say, new cocktail menu too. I heard.
Yep, we got some new wines coming in. Some really good wines, white and red wines that we're gonna be pairing with some of our nice plating or different steaks that we have on our plates and all that good stuff. But no, we're super excited. We are happy that you guys join in and watch us through the episodes. Those who are kind of just getting to know who we are and what we're doing. Myself, Nicole, Ryan with Newport Meat, we're going to continue to jump on here and give you guys updates on what's going on with market updates. And so we'll be tuning back in next week or in a week or two. I wanted to thank you guys for joining us tonight, and we'll sign off, but say thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.